Welcome. This is Ignite Kingdom Talk. Make the marketplace the miracle place. This episode features Dr. Lance Wallnau. Dr. Wallnau is a strategist, futurist, and compelling communicator. Here at Ignite, we also recognize the prophetic call and gift that Dr. Wallnau walks in. He has conducted training for the United Nations and spoken at Harvard, the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and the London School of Theology. With a 30-year background consulting businesses and nonprofits, Lance's students represent a global tapestry spanning governments, CEOs, entertainers, and entrepreneurs. He currently directs the Lance Learning Group, a strategic teaching and consulting company based in Dallas, Texas. You can check out Lance's regular broadcasts on YouTube, Facebook, and liftable.tv. Help us leverage social media for the kingdom. Let's ignite Christian business leaders all over the world. Like, comment, follow, share, and subscribe. For more resources on Spirit-led business leadership, head to ignite-cb.com. In the name of Jesus, may your faith and hope be ignited afresh and anew.
Okay, all right. Guys, I'm so happy to be here, and you can see that I don't have my wife with me today, and I've got Lance Wallnau is back with us, and if you, a couple years ago, if you went to the Ignite conference, you had a chance, an opportunity to hear from Lance, and Lance, I love what you do, I love what you're doing, I love the 7 mountains, and what you're doing there, but you know, I look at what you're doing, Lance, and I look at the Ignite Christian business, and you know, Lance, when this all broke out, when this all happened back during COVID, you know, I looked around, and as a Christian business owner, one of the things that kept coming back is, man, how do you navigate through this? How do you go to the next level with your business? How do you with all this woke stuff? But yet at the same time, I looked at the whole thing, and here I am, a Christian business owner, a former Marine, and I just didn't think I was doing anything. And that's when God told me to put this together, to unite people, to bring people together. And those people that I really had, that I really wanted to make an impact with was the business owners, the kingdom-minded people, entrepreneurs. And I just thought, to me, the best leaders, the best potential leaders that are out there today, I think just happen to be in that realm, in that area, in that arena. And I thought, how can we do it to where we take those guys, those men and women, and take them to a whole new level? I mean, think of the impact that you can have, Lance, the impact you can have for your culture, your community. And if we can change a city, we can change a nation. And it's like, to me, I want to start with those business people and look at the people that, look at the people that you and I hang around with, Lance. You got Pastor Hank and Brenda Kuhneman in a major building project. You got Canton Candy Christmas, a building project, and it's like I want to get behind it in a greater way and have greater impact. And a lot of that has to do with wealth. A lot of that has to do with getting rid of some of these old mindsets, these old mentalities, this poverty mindset. And I think there's so many business owners that have, even myself, Lance, you come to a point in your life and you've realized, well, you've got some success, you've got some things you're doing right, but you've hit this wall. And I think so many times it's past failures that keep you from going to the next level, to the level that God's calling us and where He desires for us to be. And I'm just kind of telling you where, what's on my heart. And I love what, I always love to hear from you. I love to hear, what you guys are talking about on Flashpoint. But how can we get those business owners? How do we get those kingdom-minded people to a new level? How do we get it to where, Lance, they just don't go to a conference and go, wow, that was really good. But how do we get them to say, wow, I need to take action and I want to do it now. I want to be different. How do we get that?
Well, those are great questions, Craig, and thanks for having me on your show here. The first thing is, I think that you mentioned Ken Christmas and Hank Kuhneman. I think one of the things that we lack is prophetic people in the marketplace not prophetic voices that are kind of like giving grand sweeping analysis of what's happening in the kind of the metasphere of what's happening with America and Trump and that stuff, which kind of created a vacuum for a prophetic interest because of all the Trump people. Guys like me got on board with the Christian community. What lacks there is first of all, you have to be able to assess the reality of the environment that you're in. If you're going to be a leader, then you're kind of like in the helicopter. You go up above the traffic jam and you get that altitude look. It's the prophetic look as to what's happening on the road. And you say, hey, this is WABC, up here with, the skyline view, and traffic is backed up from here to here, and there's an off-ramp over here. So the prophetic in the marketplace is really important. And I guess that's where I kind of like feel a comfort zone, because I come more as a business guy into politics and media than from a church perspective. So let's talk about what's happening that you're not hearing as a prophetic word on economics and America and the world right now. So with COVID, what we discovered was a conspiracy at a demonic level to crush independent business owners and favor the big box stores and the online marketers. So the Amazons and the Netflixes of this world made billions of dollars of profit to their bottom line, along with the pharmaceutical companies like the military-industrial complex right now in Ukraine. The big money guys on Wall Street and the big money movers don't mind crushing the independent business owner because there's competition. They're not interested in your financial welfare. They're interested in their own bottom line and their own assets. So you have to, first of all, if you're going to be in business, if you're going to be a Christian business person, you have to have the 30,000-foot perspective as to what's happening in the helicopter view of economics.
Right.
You have a government that is going now with $30 trillion in debt, is going to now give itself on purpose $2 trillion more. It's kind of like a drunken orgy of spending that goes on. And you realize that if I'm a conservative and I try to vote Republican, and that doesn't help you, because what you have is a uniparty in the imperial city. You see that the guys that run for office, they get to Washington and they don't vote what is practical for your benefit. And I'm talking about the future economics of anyone under 40, which is a sustainable marketplace you've got to have, not just the older folks, but you got to have a model that is actually onboarding consumers that are coming down the pipeline that are younger. So with a $2 trillion a year deficit that is baked into the way that these guys do economics, they simply don't care about the long-term impact of economic policy. Now, why would I say that on a broadcast where I'm going to be talking about motivating and inspiring transformation for Christian business owners? Because if you don't know reality, then you're not being served properly. You have to understand the big picture. The big picture is that there is a populist pushback on the game system. Donald Trump is hated by Wall Street. He's hated by media. He's hated by the three-letter institutions. Why? Because he came in as a businessman saying, we got to get America first and put manufacturing back, put jobs back in America, create an economy that works for the average American. When Americans, 70% of them, and these are your people that you're going to be trying to get money from in your business, when 70% of them are living paycheck to paycheck, and their bridge from month to month is a credit card with like 25% annual interest on it, you have to start thinking, well, what market niche am I in that can exist and thrive within that picture? And the first thing I say is, you have to do what you're not thinking about doing. You have to think about becoming a collective group of independent business owners within your own state that have some organized cohesion, so that you have your own legislators and your own governor protecting you from the next specious lockdown, the next flow of pandemic that favors government, it favors pharma, it favors the oligarchs, it favors the big digital traffic. It doesn't take care of you. Yeah. So one of the first things that I'm looking at doing is mobilizing states to have 100 to 150. All you got to do is have 100 independent business owners, and you've got your state legislators paying attention. These are low-income jobs. They're high career jobs, though. People go into state Senate roles. It's 2 years. They get paid $25,000, $30,000. They really do it because it positions them with some clout in their community. If they're realtors, they're also a state senator. It helps them shape, policy. But it's often a long-term play. They have people that are in legislature have long-term aspirations for politics. So organizing is something the left does organically. That's the teachers' union. That's all the unions. And Christians don't do that. We think in silos. We think autonomously. We think independently. We kind of, because that's God's way of doing things. It's really, it's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with a family business. But that kind of mentality doesn't survive if you're up against a system that is trying to game the system so that you end up being the person that's paying the interest, and the rich people are getting richer, and the struggling middle class or aspiring entrepreneur is not being represented in that. So there's a sense in which if you want to succeed in the business mountain, you better get an education on the big business mountain. That's the Wall Street and the finance market and government, because if they're in bed with each other, you're the one who's going to get screwed in the squeeze. It's going to happen to you. It's already started. So it starts with this realization. You can recreate the business environment of the future. You're going to have to pick industry sectors that are anticipating that money's going to be tight, inflation's going to be high. What's the impact of that on your business model? And then how do you play smarter? Because even though you are independent, you do compete with other independent business owners. That's kind of the irony of it. You have to work with them to protect all of you. It's kind of like religious liberty. If all I'm doing is trying to protect Hank Kuhneman or Ken Christmas or some of my friends that are prophetic voices, that's not as good as working with Kelly Shackelford, Alliance Defending Freedom, on issues that are at the Supreme Court over freedom of speech for all churches. To give you an example, entrepreneurial pastors and the new breed of apostles that I'm looking at are really entrepreneurial apostles. They think in terms of fresh business models for protecting church and for integrating it with other areas such as politics and business, because the kingdom is under siege. You got a spiritual battle going on, and the casualties of that are going to be churches and Christian business owners unless we start mobilizing and working differently. A friend of mine, Cheon, who is working, I think, on the front lines of this entrepreneurial apostolic. He stood up against Gavin Newsom. And when Newsom wanted to shut down churches in 2020, he threatened this pastor who has a South Korean background and totally American, but his father left when communism took over Korea, came to the United States. Then his son becomes a Christian, Che, and so Che's father knows all about communism from Korea, and Che has that in the back of his mind. Now imagine him sitting there staring at Gavin Newsom, who is saying, you're going to shut down your church, and you're not going to open up, or I'm going to lock you up and put you in prison. In addition, I'm going to charge your church members $1,000 for every day they go to church. Now, this is a dude who's running for president now, and he's all hair gelled and blitzed up and ready to take the seat that Biden vacates if the party requires it of him. He's going to act like he would never do it, but he's positioning himself for a future presidential run. This is a guy who's the absolute enemy of Christian interests, and Christians don't even know the story I'm telling. He has been more aggressive about persecuting Christians and free speech than any governor, and nobody's even bringing up that factor unless it's somebody like me on a talk show saying, of all the people I want to start nailing for that, why is he not having to answer and dance around that subject, freedom of speech? But the Cheon took the stand that he would not cooperate. The Supreme Court has 10,000 cases trying to get to them. Everybody wants to get there with a date with the Supreme Court because it could change the outcome of your case. But they were looking for this case. Here's the part that Christians don't know. We've got Christians like Gorsuch, who is watching, waiting for these cases to come up, to seize it, take it to the Supreme Court, and give an absolute, almost unanimous smack down on Gavin Newsom and set a policy that from now on, because the Supreme Court stepped in with one pastor who was willing to face prison for freedom of speech, there can no longer be a shutdown of churches during a pandemic scenario.
Yeah.
We now have precedent at the Supreme Court for the governor not being able to silence the voice of the church and make it submit to some arbitrary lockdown. Your freedom of religion and freedom of speech should not be given up that easily. I say that because the business community needs to do the same thing. Your state, your governor in your various states can easily lock you down because Christians are compliant. Remember, we're more sheep than wolves.
Yeah.
So we kind of like get corralled into wherever the shepherds of government and business and media take us. That mentality has to change. We have to start realizing these are not trustworthy voices, and we have to mobilize ourselves. So part of this, and I'd encourage you, Craig, to get involved with it, is we have to organize states, independent business owners, independent Christian business owners, forming federations and associations, voluntary associations, so that they can begin to talk to their own political parties and say, if you want our support, you're going to have to support economic business development within the state, and that's independent business owners, not just your big fat cat donors who give you money from the corporate side because they make money off the corporate policies. So Christians, if they want to be leaders at the top of their business, surviving and thriving in the future, have to accurately assess the geopolitical landscape, the big story of economics and where it's going, and then locally how to protect yourself. At a minimum, you cannot survive another year of being out of business and having to pay for your property and pay your taxes or pay your employees or try to keep them. Or worse yet, the government pays your employees not to work, and then you're struggling to try to keep your business running, which hit a lot of small businesses that I work with. They're competing with the government because the government's like a giant socialist machine trying to train people to get a check from government, which is great till the government's bankrupt and can't give you checks anymore. What happens then? Well, we don't want to go there, but that's the direction things headed. So step number one is realize that the national economic debt scenario it's the reason why by the time this broadcast comes out, we will have already gone through the speed bump with Matt Gaetz, and you're going to hear all of the pushback on that politics. You're going to say, well, I don't get involved with politics. I'm a Christian. I just believe in God to prosper me. Well, that's dumb, because if the thief can come through the back door in your business, why are you confessing prosperity over your front door? You better lock your back door because your inventory is going to be gone tomorrow when you get there because of the door you didn't watch.
That's
Government
good, Lance.
is the door you've got to keep an eye on now.
And
local economics is the place you got to go. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Wow. And no one is talking this. No one's speaking this, Lance.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode so far. There's more on the way. But first, we'd like to take a short break to tell you about Ignite Partner Access. Thank you for listening to Ignite Kingdom Talk. Ignite Christian Business, and by extension, Ignite Kingdom Talk, is for the Spirit-filled servant leader, called to be salt and light to the marketplace. By developing a library of free resources, fostering intentional community, and building strategic development and growth among like-minded peers, Ignite is here to empower developing business leaders to see the marketplace become the miracle place. With a yes from you and Holy Spirit, we would love to have you join the Ignite Partner Access program. Launching in development on September 1st, Ignite Partner Access is a paid access strategic development group whose weekly small group video calls are built to hone gifts and clarify visions, iron sharpening iron, against the backdrop of Ignite's own servant leaders' knowledge and experience, to add value, never merely tickle ears. Whether your business is just beginning or you're years in, we would be honored to come alongside you in your walk with God. Learn more and sign up today at ignite-cb.com. Thank you. Let's get back to the episode.
It's so crucial.
It is, and to me, it's your business. This is where your business thrives. So the prophetic voice to the marketplace has got to rise up. And we need to have a prophetic perspective as to why we're in the situation that we're in and what can possibly happen in the future that is a threat. Good leadership anticipates where the threat comes from. Having said that, there's other strategies that you engage, but you don't engage the strategy of how to thrive and build my business and have a prosperity mindset. I mean, that's the 90s talking points. We're living right now in an age where the game can change in the next 2 to 3 years, and we're going to be talking about what do you do when you can no longer be in business, and how do you survive? So I would say it starts with a sober realization. With much wisdom comes much grief. It may not be a faith-infused conversation, but if this is where the threat is, you have to analyze where the thief is coming, because a wise man sees trouble, Proverbs says, and prepares himself. So I'm looking at the debt. I'm looking at the fact that you're not hearing this discussed. You've got a uniparty in Washington. Your representatives talk like they're about getting the debt under control. Well, they don't do that. And you've got like only 10 bold voices in Congress right now that are all being labeled and maligned as radicals and extremists. Frankly, they're the ones that are saying the debt is unsustainable for small businesses. You're going to crush the American economy unless you get your fiscal house in order.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they want to put a gag order on Trump, which they just did. They want to silence him. They want to try to take him out of running, which they can't do. But they want to lock him up for 700 years if they can get away with it. We're living in a very dangerous time. So to be Pollyannish about my business vision, and understand something, I'm a dad. So I don't have these conversations with even my 30-year-old. I'm trying to protect them from what's coming. But my 20s and 30s, I want them to have a vision for business and entrepreneurial potential. In a sense, I don't want them entering the dystopian realm that I have to get into to fight powers of darkness. But I'm trying to move the field away so that those of us that are adults, the moms and dads that are in your audience, in our age group, that we understand that the time has come to organize. There is alternative economy, by the way. Part of the alternative economy is getting your business locally in front of other populists and patriots. And those are the Americans that care about the nation. We're not interested in America collapsing. We're not happy about the collapse of America. We want America to be strong for our children, free and prosperous. For that to happen, we need to create alternative economics systems. I've got something. You can get a hold of it. It's at my own website. It's lancewallnau.com/SQ. SQ. This is a young guy that I met with about 2 years ago. It's for lancewallnau.com/public square. It's an app, and this is where a millennial I was meeting with, creating an app where you that are conservatives or Christians or American business owners that want us to survive, you put your business on the app and we do business with each other. If I have a choice between giving Target or Amazon my business, or supporting a local patriot, a local Christian, a local conservative, a local somebody who's building my state and the infrastructure of our own economy, I want to do business with you. If I'm going to go to a chiropractor, I'll go to someone who's on public square. So you download the app. The app is free. You put your business on the app. That way, and like Donald Trump Jr. is doing this. I talked with Charlie Kirk. Those of us that have podcast platforms, we're pushing this right now because I want my business to go to you. I don't want it to go to someone who's going to use my money for woke policy to weaponize it against me. So technology can be a friend of ours. And by the way, apps like that are going to prosper the people using them because it's going to go public. It's already going on the stock exchange, I think, because we got 80 million to 100 million of us out there. If we can locate each other and do business on platforms like that,
that's right.
I'll give you my business before I'll give it to someone else.
Right.
So that public square is one of those things. But you have to look at how do you innovate like within a state. There again, I'm more interested in trying to support the businesses in my state that are local because that's where my local economy is. I want to organize our business people so that the legislators know that you don't want to lock me down arbitrarily and just nod your head when the governor decides another lockdown's coming, because I distrust the judgment of the elites as
Yeah.
to what constitutes a necessity for locking down my business. I think you guys are putting people out of business and you're not held accountable.
Yeah.
And the government can only bail out people so much before it's bankrupt. So public square is one of the technologies that I look at. Local organizing is one of the things that I do. And then the other thing that I recommend strongly is you do an analysis in your business model of how online are you? Because what we've learned is that you're going to have to really be smart about developing your online business. I'm amazed at the number of businesses that are Christian, that are conservative, that are patriots, that have not built a robust strategy for building a list. The number one thing you've got to do, and I tell all my people I coach, I say, you've got two priorities as a business person. It's building your customer list, and it's maintaining a relationship with the list that you build. You're only as strong in this kind of where they can mess you up, shut you down, lock you up, or even weaponize banking. So I had a challenge with Bank of America because they wanted to do an analysis of me for fear. This is political, that I might be, that I might be a dangerous conservative patriot with influence. So I have to do like an internal audit to convince them that I'm a legitimate business and that I'm not laundering funds to something. So imagine this is where we're at now. You've got to actually also have two sources of banking. I see you got to have the one that you're working with and have a secondary, because you don't want to have a situation where your accounts are suddenly frozen, your payables are frozen because somebody goes after you. You have to have a secondary bank that you're also working with. At all times, I have two banks to do risk mitigation on my operation. And these are things people don't think about. But this is where our business conversation goes.
Wow, that is so much stuff. Oh, absolutely, Lance. This is great stuff. This is absolutely great stuff. And guys, we're going to have the link, what Lance was talking about, down below there. And Lance, before I know you've got to get going. But here's the other thing. One of the things, gosh, there was so much there. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to listen to this several different times, and I want to do this again, Lance. And let's go to it. Let's continue on with this. But one of the things that we're doing is getting small groups together, accountability groups of business owners and those entrepreneurs. And these are the things that we need to talk about within those groups. That basically they meet every single week. For an hour at a dedicated time each week, and again, these are some topics that we've got to dive into. We've got to discuss, and again, I think a little bit different with Ignite Christian Business is the thing that you've seen the business models that are out there, and the Christian business models, and I'm not knocking them; they're great, but I think they leave out the spirit-filled part of it because of just they don't want to go there or something. But I think it's so needed in today's world and the times that we're living in, more so than anything else. And to me, it goes hand in hand, because we need to hear that. We need to hear the word. We need to hear from Him. We need to hear that prophetic voice. And I feel that sometimes I'm so fortunate because I can hang out with great men of God like yourself, like Hank Kuhneman and Pastor Kent Christmas, and you can hear that prophetic voice. But it hasn't been there in the past, or at least I haven't been around it in the past like I have been recently. And I don't know, it's so needed. It's so needed now. Elias, I want to do this again.
Yeah, for sure. We should. And there is a spiritual part of the whole strategy. So then the other part of this is we're looking at marketplace ecclesias or ecclesias.
Yeah.
You want to have where two or more gather together. There I am in the midst of you. So I believe that Christians ought to be getting together, and they ought to be praying about the economy of their local city, their town, their community, or their industry. And that where you have two or more getting together like that, you're creating a real power that has not been in the business domain much, especially when you get together and say, we want a regional authority over the prosperity of our community. And what it does is it attracts investment. It attracts infrastructure. I'll be going to Albania, I think, to work with the president of all things, because they just put an airport in and they've got a massive Airbnb opportunity for investment in Europe for income. The Airbnb is so long as the government doesn't shut it down, it's an excellent way of diversifying your wealth, so that whatever money you've got, whatever profitability you've got, you got to be like Abraham. You had 7 streams of income. Think in terms of how you could diversify your business so that it's integrated with what you do, but it expands into other areas around you. The ecclesia is a big part of that, praying for the prosperity of your community and your city, coming together and asking God to release his blessing, because it brings infrastructure development, it affects other things, and a rising tide raises all boats, which is why the Christian community should work together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Lance, we want to do this again, and let's try to do it down at that Dallas studio, so it's convenient for you as well. But Lance, guys, you need to go to ignite-cb.com and take a look at the partnership program that's out there to get together with like-minded people every single week. You're going to be blessed, and I believe it's something that we're going to need in the things that we're facing. And Lance, we're excited to have you at the Ignite conference coming up in 2024 in May here in Omaha, Nebraska. Lance, I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to get back together with you. And guys, go out and do something great for your community. And what you do today determines your success for tomorrow. Lance, love having you.
We hope you were encouraged by today's session. You can access free resources, support Ignite's mission to empower Christian business leaders, and join the Ignite community by heading to ignite-cb.com. Dive into growth, encouragement, and intentional engagement. Join Ignite Partner Access at ignite-cb.com/partner-access. Thank you for being with us today. And remember, the best is yet to come.